is we were able to unpack quite a bit of history and spend some time with it, and we really tried to feature some of that. Again, just connecting people to their great Summerfest experiences, and really to your question, Kurt, it really was about social. That was what we were able to
Yeah.
leverage because I think everyone was looking for connection points that were new, but also, as we all know, that just music was such an important part of people remaining connected to one another and their normalcy. So and then quite frankly, we also had a lot of information to share. I mean, things were changing, and so remaining relevant and keeping people informed as to what was going on with our venue and our shows was also a really important part of the past couple months, or the past 18 months.
Welcome to Over a Pint, where we focus on the fast-paced and ever-changing world of marketing, told through the eyes of three industry veterans with decades of in-the-trenches experience. No theory here. This is real-world practical experience told to you by those who have been there, and that includes our guests. So grab a pint of your local favorite brewski or whatever your choice of drink may be, and join us for the show. As always, I'm joined by my co-host, Pat McGovern, new biz director at Acedia, an award-winning digital shop here in Milwaukee. BrianM, president of Celtic, a full-service ad agency located in Milwaukee's historic Third Ward neighborhood. And I'm Kurtl, vice president at Celtic. Today, we are super excited to be joined by Sarah Pancheri. Sarah is the Chief Operating Officer and Vice President of Sales and Marketing at Milwaukee World Festival. So, when it comes to iconic brands, they don't need a whole lot of introduction. Whether it's on a local, national, global level, iconic brands have a few things in common. They have a strong, unique personality and identity, always brand consistency, highly, if not immediately recognizable, and the brand keeps and delivers on a promise all the time. And I'd be remiss if I didn't say they connect with their customers like no other. And so I think that sets the stage for today.
Yeah.
When you say the word Summerfest, that one word, especially around these parts, really says it all. Then on top of that, you have this iconic logo, that recognizable, beautiful smile that we all know. And for anyone living in Wisconsin or the Midwest, or beyond for that matter, hearing that word or seeing that logo takes you back, whether it's a certain time in your life, a concert you may have attended, friends you used to hang out with. But make no mistake, this brand very much lives in the present and continues to get you pumped up today, because when you hear or see the word Summerfest, you know you are in for one heck of a great time.
Yeah, no doubt.
So that brings us back to our guest, Sarah, who works and is a part of this iconic brand on a day-to-day basis. Sarah, welcome to Over a Pint.
Thank you. Wow, what an incredible introduction. I was like, man, this guy must be in marketing. It's really, I mean, and then you use words like ever changing. What was the other one? I thought, wow, I'm in the right place. I'm sitting in the right place today.
We make it all sound good, Sarah. So Sarah, we have a tradition here at Over a Pint. The show is called that for a reason, because we like to enjoy a beverage, and that beverage can be anything that you want it to be: tea, water, coffee, beer, whatever. So we're going to go around the horn, and we're going to ask everyone what they are drinking today. And Sarah, we are going to start with you. What are you drinking?
So I have a twofer today, because in my Celtic pint glass, I have currently have an energy drink, and then I will enjoy my favorite beer, which is a Miller High Life, 16-ouncer, festival size.
Dang.
So I need both today.
Very nice.
What about you, Kurt? Tell me what you're drinking.
Well, I am drinking Fuel Cafe by Lakefront Brewery. It's their coffee stout. It's very delicious, very appropriate for an afternoon podcast where I can kind of enjoy a little fuel and also a little bit of beer. Cheers to you, Sarah.
And I kept it real simple. We got Summerfest and Sarah on. We go Miller Lite. Wonderful Miller Lite, sponsor of the festival. Would love to give them some love right now. So we'll crack that baby open and we'll get that
Nice.
in a
Oh, I
Celtic
love
drink
it.
glass here.
Perfect.
And then because Miller is a sponsor, I had to go with the Leinenkugel Summer Shandy. I had a different beer, and I'm like, no, I probably want to go Miller. So we're Summer Shandy. There you go. Let's pop that. Let's get this party started.
Yeah, let's get it started. So I'm gonna kick it off with a very easy question. So Sarah, knowing that the Over a Pint pod audience is international, we are heard all over the world. So, but for those that might be living under a rock and have never heard of Summerfest, which I highly doubt any of our listeners are not aware of who Summerfest is, give us an overview of what Summerfest is all about.
So Summerfest is the world's largest music festival. It is an event that takes place every year and has for the past 53 years. It's a multi-genre, 12-stage, in 2021, 9-day music festival, which, and one of the most important things that I will attest to about our festival is that we have a variety of genres. So you can see everything from hip hop to country to alternative to bluegrass. I'm so excited for Green Sky Bluegrass this year. But the point is that it's an event that brings together a community through music for the idea that it's a people's festival and one that intends to celebrate the cornerstone of summer, beer, music. How's that for? I mean, I believe me, I could go on and on and on about a legendary lineup, you know, $160 million of festival improvements into Henry Meyer Festival Park, the fact that we're the envy of the country because we've got this beautiful festival site right on the lakefront, downtown Milwaukee. Like, oh, there's volumes I could share, but really it comes down to an American music festival that incorporates so many genres and is produced every year, really for the benefit of the community and music lovers everywhere.
That's a great summary of what Summerfest is all about, and we will get into more detail about the event. But you know, Sarah, we would be remiss. Brands are also comprised of people, and everyone has a story. And you are our guest, so I think this would be a great time for you to share with us briefly your story. Because you've got a pretty cool gig yourself right now, maybe you can tell us briefly, you know, your background and how and where you came to be where you are today.
Sure. So, like Pat, I'm a University of Wisconsin graduate. I'm from Milwaukee. Never intended on staying in this community, but have been fortunate to receive these incredible opportunities. Starting with early on being at an organization called United Performing Arts Fund, and at the time I was a young graduate. I studied Russian political science in the 90s. You can imagine it was a very different time in modern day Russia, and so my parents said, you should really go get a job. And I said, well, I can't do my major, so I'm going to go do something else. And ended up being fortunate to work in Milwaukee among a variety of community leaders, including a woman named Bo Black, who, if you're familiar with the history of Summerfest, she ran Summerfest for, I believe it was about 2.5 decades, and got an opportunity to work at the festival early in my career, and then worked my way through sponsorship and PR roles here, left the organization to work for Marquette University, then moved on to Boys and Girls Clubs, another great Milwaukee organization. If you could tell, I've been fortunate to have all these really cool opportunities to work for, I think, some of Milwaukee's most, you know, prestigious and really just long-standing organizations. And then in 2015, had a conversation with our current CEO, Don Smiley, when there was some movement here in the organization, and then came back to Summerfest in 2015. So I've been here since that time, and you know, this is a privilege of a gig. I mean, I love the business. I love what we do for the community. Little known fact, I did work here as a high schooler. I'm a Milwaukee lifer, or a homer. So I've kind of done a variety of different jobs here. But what I do today is I'm chief operating officer, as you said, and then really so involved in operations as well as the vertical around sales and marketing. So all the sponsorships, marketplace, corporate relationships, as well as PR, digital, advertising that falls to our group here, and we've got a great team who has made it through such a challenging year, challenging environment for live events, and we are plugged in and ready to go. Whatever come our way, we're excited to produce a festival in 2021.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
How's that? Did I win
Yes.
at the
Yeah.
You killed it. You killed it.
Yes, you did.
I mean, it's like
You said it very
we're
eloquently.
really quickly right now, so I apologize if it's a little fast, but we're just like I said, it's a great gig, and I'm very fortunate to do it and love every day.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Sarah, we know that last year was a challenge, right? We don't have to really get into it. Everybody understands that. Could you maybe tell folks about how, you had a pivot for this year, and the preparations that have gone on this year with missing the festival season last year? How much of a challenge was that for you, and how did you kind of work your way through that?
Well, it's an incredibly big question to answer because there's a couple different ways to look at it. First, of course, the festival itself. And our entertainment team, who's they're seasoned group, and they're really, they know a lot about the business, but they've booked the event we're going to have in a few weeks 4 times. So it was first, June of 20, September of 20, June of 21, September of 21. So, I mean, and a credit to the industry and the bands that have stayed with us and moved with us that whole time. So it's that piece of it has been certainly trying, but a lot of collaboration across a lot of different departments. There's also the piece where, we manage and steward Henry Mauer Festival Park, which of course we weren't able to have some of the events that we love down here over the past 2 years. So, working through that and managing 75 acres is still 75 acres. And so, there's property out there that is, needed to be tended to and make sure that it remains as beautiful and viable as it is today, that it was when a year when we didn't do anything out there, the way we couldn't gather in the community. But we also develop Henry Mauer Festival Park. So in the off season, we were busy finishing up our 2-year amphitheater project. So actually it turned into 3 years. The new American Family Insurance Amphitheater received a $51 million series of upgrades that was a complete redevelopment of the property. The building has great bones, but we basically put everything new into it. New back of house. We raised the roof, new concourses, 20,000 square feet of new concourses, new seats, and on, as well as adding the new Generac Power Stage and the new Northwestern Mutual Community Park. So while we didn't have our typical festival season, we also were busy improving the facility in a way that I think will be really meaningful for people for years to come.
Wow.
So yeah, I mean, there's a million answers to that question, and it is, you look back. I don't know about you all, but you kind of lose a few months there. I don't know if anyone else feels that way about 2020.
Sure.
Like you just sort of, okay, but we did accomplish a great deal considering how challenging it was.
To your point, I just want to give you kudos because I think some people may think, well, the festival is canceled. Just take the next 6 to 9 months off, and we'll get back at it next year. The reality is for months and months and months and throughout, you have been developing and redeveloping those grounds, and people are going to be blown away when they come in post-pandemic to see the changes that have been made. So the investment has been incredible, and I just appreciate the overview on everything that's been done.
Yeah, absolutely. To kind of piggyback on that a little bit, it's the conversation we have a lot, Sarah, with many of our clients last year was, different time, different situation. What do we do? What does the brand do? How do we still stay out there? And so talk to us a little bit about what your strategy was to stay connected as best you could with all of your audiences. Did your strategy shift and you said, you know what, this channel is going to become a lot more important to us, or this is how we're going to make sure that we keep these folks really super excited and engaged and just biting at the bullet? Talk to us a little bit of how you had to shift a little bit on that and what you did to really stay connected with those folks.
Yeah, I mean, I think that if anything, and maybe I'll speak for myself, but I mean, music was more relevant than ever throughout the pandemic. And then, obviously coming out of it as we're able to continue to see live shows. And so we really internally here spend a lot of time thinking about, okay, how does music connect to people?
Mhm.
Like how can we use what we have that's part of our DNA to help really raise people's spirits, whether that's just putting more music news out there. We were able to, I often share, we're a music festival that has a lot of history, but we're also not a library. So it's not like there's a Dewey Decimal System that says like, oh, in 1978 we had this or that. I mean, we basically shoved it into a closet and slammed the door and said, "Woo, let's do that again next year," right? So we were able to. My point is, we were able to unpack quite a bit of history and spend some time with it, and we really tried to feature some of that. Again, just connecting people to their great Summerfest experiences, and really to your question, Kurt, it really was about social. That was what we were able to
Yeah.
leverage because I think everyone was looking for connection points that were new, but also, as we all know, that just music was such an important part of people remaining connected to one another and their normalcy. So and then quite frankly, we also had a lot of information to share. I mean, things were changing, and so remaining relevant and keeping people informed as to what was going on with our venue and our shows was also a really important part of the past couple months, or the past 18 months.
Yeah. One of the things I always looked forward to was the probably more so than ever last year, not to focus on that, but was what are you listening to on Friday? I always have my social channels.
Perfect example.
Yeah.
That
And
New Music Fridays was a big one for us. So that's a better
it was
you gave
great.
a better example than I did. So.
But my fear always was, if I tell you all what I'm really listening to, who over on your end is going to make fun of me? I'm like, I'm going to do it anyway. And then I'm sure it's like, can you see what he said? He's anyway.
Never shame. No. Yes. I mean, but that's a really good example of, I know like internally we would do, Kelly, would say, hey, I want to do a playlist of live albums. And she would, circle the whole staff and say, what's your favorite live album? Or, there's just again, that's where that music theme for us just really is meaningful around, hey, what are you listening to? What are you liking? What are you, I discovered a few musicians on my, I personally, I would walk during I became a walker, and would listen to some bands that I hadn't heard for quite some time, but also some new bands that I really like. So it was just about discovery.
Hey, Sarah.
What about you guys? Go ahead, Pat.
So I want to take a little bit of a different tact here on the question, because we've been fortunate enough. We had some very, very cool guests on the show. And for the most part, I could understand what they do and how they do it. I look at your job and go, what are you talking about? I can't even imagine doing your job. I mean, it just seems so overwhelming to me. But you've got a great background. It's so impressive. You've got experience with the brand before. But Sarah, when you got the position that you're in now, what were some of the biggest surprises to you?
That's a great question. I think, and it was something that I knew to be true for my previous years at Summerfest, but and I think it's relevant in particular today, is just how global the music business really is in terms of the competitive nature of touring, in terms of how things had changed in marketing, in terms of specifically marketing bands and how much some things do change and how much sometimes they don't change. I mean, if you think about, for me, coming back to a role or an organization in a new role and really appreciating all the digital opportunity around music promotion. I mean, that was a huge, and a really happy surprise, but certainly one that was exciting for me to take on.
Yeah.
And then, I would say the other piece of this is just the complexity on the operations side, just the complexity of the operation and how staged and staggered in terms of all the different steps. I mean, in order to, I mean, we recently had the Foo Fighters here, which was glorious in every way, because it was just so terrific to have a band like that open the new venue. We learned a lot, in all candor. We learned a lot. It was the first time we'd operated that venue, but with a sellout crowd. But if, preparations for that start weeks in advance, and obviously that doesn't just mean the bands, that means, we had not used that venue, and it had sat. So, brand new seats had sat for all that, so it's the sequencing and the timing and the interconnectedness of what we do here. It's really quite amazing when you think about a venue of this size and all the people it takes to run it. Because it's certainly not one person's job, right? There's no one person that makes this work. It's a huge team of dedicated people. So I would say surprises were, it's a happy surprise was just how much music marketing had evolved since I was previously here, and I got to understand a lot more about how we're able to do that and how active the artists are in that. And then on the operations side, it's really just the fact that when I've been part of, I think, 6 or 7 building projects since I've been back. I have my own hard hat, which I was pretty excited to get. I never think that would happen in my career. But just in terms
Is
of,
that it up there?
Yeah, it's the pink one. And so, but just the interconnected nature of like when you make one decision, about where to locate, a VIP area, sort of all the things that roll from that and then stay with you for a long time. So.
Hey, Sarah, question for you. The weekend format, you're going to a new format this year, where we're going to weekends. Maybe if you could just discuss a little bit about the decision behind that and how that's going to benefit all the guests that come to Summerfest this year.
Yeah, so I had a little time last summer and started getting into, we had a pretty significant, if not very, very significant impact on our overall revenue last year. So everything's on the table, right? Like when a business goes through big events, everything's on the table. And so when we looked at, okay, when do people really come to the festival, and what's the trend in festivals, and how are people consuming entertainment? You see more and more that the festival game, those lineups just continue to get bigger and bigger, and more national talent throughout the whole day. And so we knew we always knew we wanted to do that. That was something that we had pretty consistently seen in the feedback we get. And also you just look at the numbers of people who come, and the pattern was clear. More people come on Thursday than Tuesday. It's just the way that is. And when you're looking at a business that's trying to evolve and grow and be inclusive of all the types of talent, we definitely want to make sure that we're able to get to the most people as possible. Then you add another week of routing, which if you think about what Bob and the team have been able to do over all these years, to get consecutive big nights in the amphitheater when you've got all these tours that are moving all around the country or all around the world, so difficult. So when you open yourself up to another week of routing, that really does allow us to bring in, even if the lineup could get any better, it just got better. So so it was all of those factors put together that we feel like are going to contribute to a really successful 3-weekend model. We love the fact that we're able to, invite more people from Chicago and from all parts unknown into Milwaukee too, to kind of add another weekend of festival fun. So we're really excited about it and feel like it's going to be the week for our event. But hey, we changed once, and we're never going to take it off the table to look back either. So. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. What do you guys think? I guess I know I'm the guest, but I'm doing all the talking. I'd love to take a sip of my beer and get your feedback.
Well, you know what, I just personally speak. personally speaking, I just love the strategy behind it, because a lot of times people think, well, they just change for change's sake, or this year we're going to do something different. It's like, no, there's rationale and there's thought behind it. And to your point, if you look at other national, international festivals, they're compressing a lot of high-end talent into 2 days. Maybe like a Friday, Saturday format versus going 6 or 7 days long. So I like this idea of upping the game and upping the talent and putting them into weekends when more people are going to come to enjoy it, versus, like you said, a Tuesday when maybe I've got something going on with work or a family event. So I applaud it. I think it's going to be exciting.
Sarah, you can have a sip of your beer now, because I'm going to say something. So feel free to. It's not a direct. I'm not going to address the 3 weekends. What I was thinking when you were talking about Pat's earlier question, I was thinking about your responsibility and all the things that you do. And I think, when someone says they oversee marketing and sales, that's, depending on the organization, it can be very, very broad and complex, or it can be very narrow. Yours is very broad, very complex. And I think back, the festival, Summerfest, started in 1968. Fast forward to now, 2021. What I'm thinking about is the complexity, just what you're describing, all the things when we ask you marketing questions, you're talking about routing and this. All the things that you define as part of the marketing package. We're not talking about 1968, 1969. It's like, let's promote the festival. We've got 3 TV channels to choose from, maybe a billboard. The game has so changed, and what marketing means to you, and what all the options and technologies that are available to you to try to intercept your audiences. It's just got to be a constant challenge to be like, what's the best way that we do this? What's the best way to make sure we get the most bang and stay in front of our audiences with the budget we have? That's what I keep going at. Like, that's what a challenge that's got to be. And how, maybe you can just briefly, how has that changed when you started, even 5 years ago, whatever it might be, like, talk about maybe how the marketing has changed in your short lens in that brief window.
Yeah.
So, Don and I, we often, so our market is 8 to 80.
Mm-hmm.
So you guys are veteran marketers.
Pretty small. That's pretty small.
Yeah.
So a couple things, that really represents the opportunity to go any direction, which sometimes can be challenging because there's so many different directions, as you said, to go. And I think where we try to really, the opportunity and how things have changed is that, we're able to look at from, okay, this is who we think is a Miley Cyrus, customer, which, and I think that the important thing about music to remember is that you have to be really careful not to pigeonhole anybody, any particular artist or a segment, because, there is this, we tend to do that and just in life, and it can really lead you down the wrong path, because I will tell you that a Dave Chappelle, a Guns N' Roses, those, you think, okay, well, maybe it's a little older. Not necessarily, right? Like, Guns N' Roses has new music. I just heard it, the single today. It's awesome, right? So it's just, it's you really have to be careful not to pigeonhole yourself. My point is where I think we make an investment is to try to get as specific as we can when we can, but also promote this larger entity called Summerfest that really helps us gain momentum. And so it's really important to pick your spots when you can, but just keep the larger, in particular in southeastern Wisconsin and Chicago, continue to keep the larger presence of the festival there, because you'd be surprised at how much momentum the little initiatives pick up, or the little initiatives, excuse me, the shows and other initiatives pick up when you have the larger event called Summerfest that's really going. So it's a little bit of a balancing act sometimes, because you want to make sure that the event maintains all the beautiful things you said about it earlier, being iconic and really representing something special to people. You have to maintain that and feed that by being really broad, while also, you know, taking advantage of specific opportunities as they present themselves. We'd always like to be better. We'd always like more money because Bob takes it all to book the bands, which is really frustrating. Which is true. But you know, it's about picking your spots because as you guys know, our budgets are pretty small compared to most other large events. Our marketing budgets, I should say.
Yeah. You know,
So,
Sarah, this leads me to, I want to piggyback on Kurt's question a little bit more, in that, and Kurt, you did an awesome job summing things up, and when you're in your opening statement, and it really struck me. It's like you really have an iconic brand, Sarah. I mean, that you're representing, which is unbelievable. So, in terms of marketing, and I'm going at like a 3,000-foot level here. Are you more concerned with, listen, we've got an awareness issue, or are you thinking about something else? Like with a lot of brands we represent, it's like, we just need people to know us. Well, kind of everybody, a lot of people know Summerfest. So are you more focused on educating them, or more like, what's your viewpoint of marketing overall? Does that make sense?
it does. And so two things I would start with. First, this is not Sarah waking up and doing this. There are a lot of people. There's a team.
Yeah,
You know,
no, for sure.
You know, and I just think it's so important to recognize that when you have a role like mine, where it's a lot of people that make this go, including colleagues like Bob and Don and everyone else, and then our marketing team, our sales team. So that's number one. I think it depends on where you're talking about. You know, we hire and work with a wonderful agency out of New York City that has relationships with the music industry, and they also have offices in Nashville and LA. So Summerfest, you know, there is an awareness issue in New York City, or in sometimes, you know, the worst thing that we hear. There are two tough things.
Yeah.
One is, hey, you know, I was in Denver with my buddy's place, and I, you know, they're all music fans, and no one had heard of Summerfest, and you're like, oh shoot, you know, because it's hard, because you know, we in Milwaukee, we and Wisconsin, you know, it's like, how do you not know? So
Right.
that's one aspect. The other tough thing is when you hear, oh, that person played, I would have gone. It's like, because that represents the other side of the marketing challenge, which is there's so many shows, there's so much information to put out. So it really, to answer your question, it's a high level perspective around, you know, we need to continue to brand the festival as the national destination festival that it is, outside of people that may have grown up with it, or that may really love it and have done their great effort to be an advocate for it. There's also the sheer challenge of, I mean, I'm looking at this, right? So this is I mean, how many shows are there, right? I mean, that's an incredible amount of music that, I mean, I'll put a plug in for Robert Randolph and the Family Band. Like, that's an amazing band coming out right out of the gate the first day we open at 4:00. Like that versus, you know, Diplo or Run the Jewels. It's just, there's so much music to try to put out there. So that's like the local perspective, is like, it's very high level outside the market, and then in the market, it's really the detail and trying to make sure people have as much information as they can.
Yeah. You know, what I find interesting about that is, you know, for people that listen to this that are in marketing, a lot of times you may think, well, I just need to build awareness in this one market. Listening to you've got a diverse audience that you're trying to reach, and you're absolutely right. The decision makers in Nashville, if they don't know who you are, that's a problem. So how do we tackle that more on a national, regional basis? Where in Wisconsin, it's like, well, of course, everybody knows Summerfest. The challenge is the volume of information that needs to get out there, and how you prioritize it and who it goes to. So I think that's a lesson for all marketers, is really map out your audience and be ready to face the reality that it's not one size fits all.
Well, and I think celebrate the victories, right? I mean, so it's when you carry, and we just love the festival so much, and we carry so much pride for it in this community, and we're very grateful for that. And how to, you know, make those real. I mean, Kurt, I would put you in this, because you've just been such a such a promoter of the event, you know, equip those people to tell your story the right way, and then celebrate the victories when you do. I mean, we've had some, like the Jimmy Kimmel relationship was something we initiated a couple of years ago. But keep in mind, that took a couple of years to steward and get to where it was. We were part of their live stream. So these things take time. You know, the COVID year sort of threw a wrench into some things we were working on, but you know, we'll continue to work on those. And it is so rare that anyone from the industry, they come here and they go, wow, this is just an incredible festival. So it's really, it's that awareness piece that you need to just keep on it.
Sarah, I've got a question for you, and it's and maybe I'm going to ask you to look at it from two different ways. You know, I'm a big believer that we tend to take things for granted. That's human nature. It's like when you have something and it's there all the time, you take it for granted. What does Summerfest mean to Milwaukee and Wisconsin? And my second part of that question is, what does it mean on a national perspective to the industry? Because to your point earlier, there's definitely a local element here. We're very proud of it. I'd like to know what it means to us here, but what does it mean nationally to the industry?
Can I answer in reverse order?
Yeah, absolutely. Sure.
Is it allowed?
You're the guest.
Yeah.
I mean, first of all, I would definitely say that there's a couple of perspectives on that, and mine would be, I mean, certainly Bob Babish would have a much richer perspective given his years of service. But I think that if you think about the fact that Milwaukee World Festival, a nonprofit organization who has raised private money to put into this park, that is, you know, a public asset, and then produces a festival over many decades that represents a variety of different genres. I mean, that's unique in our landscape. You know, a lot of the larger festivals nationally are owned by Live Nation, AEG. Like we work with both of those companies. Like they're partners, but it's more rare that there's an independent nonprofit organization running this event. So I think that from a national perspective, without speaking to all the different ways that, you know, we bring them through a lot of bands and how that's important to just touring and routing through the Midwest and all that good stuff. I mean, the fact that we are who we are is notable, given the fact that we're an independent, that is still, you know, doing it the way it's booked locally and supported by this community. So that, I think that's unique in our overall festival landscape. It's certainly, you know, and also I think our market, you know, it's in Milwaukee it's an incredible destination. You know, no one comes to this community and says, you know, that we're not the most hospitable. You know, we have a great time. We have great amenities, you know, all the good things that I know you all know. So I think that, you know, from a national perspective, that's something we do within our industry. Locally, I can share, I mean, this is where I can really go on, so I'll try to limit my comments, but, you know, we put, you know, $186 million in economic impact into this community on an annual basis. That's an incredible amount of money. That is, I mean, it's $1 billion every 5 or 6 years. It's direct economic impact to Wisconsin. So,
right.
So that in itself is important. You know, like others like me, you know, it's a job experience. There's tons of people that we employ, 2,200 people at a summer. You know, there's that. Then, you know, so there's the hard numbers. Then you get into just in my mind, so I describe it as the Summerfest look. Like if you ask somebody, and don't worry, I will ask you, you know, what was your favorite Summerfest show? And you get this this look on your face that if you've you know been part of our community for a long time, and it's that appreciation of music, it's that great time, it's that friend you met, it's all the things that contribute to what we know as the city of festivals, which I believe is part of the fabric of this community. So that's when I talk about this is it's a privilege of a gig. You get to be part of that experience, which I think is really, really important to people in Milwaukee. So hard numbers were a significant contributor, but also to the psyche of this Milwaukee community. I think we play a really important role.
Great answer.
So,
Pretty cool.
well, I mean, I could talk forever. Believe me.
Yeah. One
wants that.
one. Yeah, I'll give you a break. So
I'll go get another beer.
Yeah.
Refill. We'll keep going.
One thing I wanted to play off of what Kurt had talked about taking for granted. I think that's a very interesting thing because I've been in the Milwaukee market a long time and I don't take Summerfest for granted, but we're very familiar with it, right? So we worked with one of the ethnic festivals that leases the grounds during the summer months and brings in bands from pretty much all over the world. And I remember one time I picked up a band from Northern Ireland. So you can guess what the ethnic festival was, but Northern Ireland. And I was talking to them. They're like, well, yeah, we did a church festival. And then we went to this other little festival in Pittsburgh and there was 2,000-3,000 people there. And they were pretty excited. You know, they're in America. We're making it in America. And I remember driving up on the grounds and them getting out of the car to dead silence, They had never seen anything that we have here. And they looked at it and said, so this stage here performs while this stage over here, and there's 5,000 people here and 7,000. It's like, yeah, welcome to Milwaukee.
Welcome to
and
the
I think
bigs.
it's welcome to the bigs. So, I mean, it's easy for us to kind of, it's Summerfest, you know, but for people that are outside this market, when they come, it'll blow your mind. I mean, that's the only way I can describe it, is it'll blow your mind.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and we believe we have a role to play in that welcome, right? So, and we want to fill hotel rooms and we want to fill restaurant. Like we want to be, and so many things about this community, you know, qualify as worthy to come to, and we certainly feel like that. If we can add to the big, you know, it's a big market town in terms of our amenities, and we want to be. I mean, look at Miller, or look at Ampham Field. Look at Pfizer Farm. I mean, look at what we're doing with our museum. It's a fabulous place to be.
Yeah,
it really is. Sarah, so obviously we're weeks away. The appetite is there. I mean, I mean, it's safe to say we're seeing the trends, the stats. People they're excited for whether it's travel, whether it's to party, have a good time. We're weeks away. What can we expect? I know you went in earlier, there's a lot of new change, but what would you want to tell someone that they can expect as the gates open up in a few weeks? What should they expect? What are some of the can't misses? Just give us the what we're going to see.
Sarah's hot takes.
Yeah.
Oh, hot takes? Are we talking music? Like what are okay.
Anything you want to talk about. Whatever.
Anything
Oh my
you
gosh,
want.
there's
This is
so
your
much,
show.
right? So this is hot takes. I wish I would have so musically, I think, you know, I would just encourage anyone looking at the lineup, first of all, download the app. Secondly, look the whole day. All the resources that we poured into building a lineup of acts all day. And there's so much great music to see. And don't miss the new amenities like the Generac Power Stage, like the Northwestern Mutual. You're going to wish you were a kid when you see the community park. Like it is absolutely phenomenal and something I'm just, our team is so proud, you know, much more accessible for a variety of different, you know, all different kinds of challenges. So we're so proud of it and so excited by it. So download the app, look all day. You know, we're a cashless venue, so please bring your cards. You can convert cash into a card at no expense, so that's an important piece. And then obviously we just announced recently about our new entrance protocols. You know, bring your proof of vaccination, which is acceptable as a card on a digital or hard copy, or a proof of a negative test within 72 hours. You know, as we understand that that's a difference and an important piece that we want to make sure people are aware of, you know, starting now. And then also just, you know, bring the right state of mind, right? Like, I mean, we're so grateful to be able to gather again and want to make sure that people, you know, it's a little different. It's in September, it's 3 weekends. you know, it's sort of feels different for different reasons. But I think if you can get yourself in the right state of mind, there is no shortage of good time to have down here. So that's my hot take is state of mind.
Amen. That's great.
That's great.
That's great.
Yeah. So Sarah, what questions did Brian and Pat not ask you that you wish they would have?
Yeah, I'd like to know this group's favorite Summerfest performance. So I gave you a little time. I usually don't give people a lot of time, but I mean, it's, I assume everyone's attended. So if you,
Oh, well, I'll give you more of a break, Brian. I'll let you think about that. It's for me, it's easy. I can't remember the year, but there were a couple of years in a row when the Violent Femmes were playing at Summerfest. So this is like mid to late 80s. Just, I mean, I dug their music, and that was just a fun time. And you know, we were just down there being goofy, and then it was awesome. And yeah, I could still remember that vividly.
Yeah. From my perspective, and I'm not trying to appease our guest because I know she likes the side stages. I'll tell you, most people think, you know, the amphitheater, you know, the big show, the big lights. But I tell you, my favorite thing to do is to go down during the day or early evening, grab a beer, and go find cover bands, you know, that are just covering Styx and REO and Rush and whatever you want it to be, or going and finding just some act that you haven't seen in 20 years and didn't even know they were still around, but they're playing one of the side stages. I'm a big side stage nut. I love it. That's where I kind of like to hang out.
Yeah, you know, from my perspective, Brian, I too agree with you. I love going down, beer in hand, and walking around. I love checking out the stages. You can find great entertainment everywhere. There's surprises around every corner, not to sell for Summerfest, but there are. Amazing how you'll just come across the stage and you're like, oh my gosh, this is the coolest music, coolest band. So I love doing that too. Although Sarah, I won't dodge your question. I stand by this every single time I'm asked. The memory I have, if I had this right away, was no doubt, it was years ago, and I saw In Excess open up for the Go-Go's at the old main stage, and that was, it was very memorable for all the reasons I said earlier. It was just, I mean, to see In Excess in those earlier years during their, I think it was the Shabu Shabbat tour, whatever it was, and Go-Go's at their height, and the friends I was with, it was just a great memory. And great music and a great time.
That was, you said the old main stage, right?
Yeah. Yeah, the old main stage.
On the north side of the grounds, right?
Yeah.
Was there a major thunderstorm right before the In Excess went on?
I do remember that. Well, that was In Excess. I believe then it did rain during that concert. I remember In Excess playing during the rain, not enough to shut down the concert. But then a few years later, In Excess was the headliner, and it rained crazy to the point where the show was canceled, I believe. It was like the heavens just opened up, boom. But not for the show I saw. It rained, but it was awesome, just awesome.
You know what I love about hearing you guys talk is it's oftentimes not your favorite band, it's the experience. Because to be quite frank, sometimes I don't always remember what the band was. Just saying. But you remember the day, who you were with, what you were doing.
Absolutely.
And it's all about experience. I mean, to me, Summerfest is more than music. It's an experience, you know, and it's best done with friends and neighbors and, you know, people in the community. So lots of great memories.
Sarah, what about you? What's your memory? What's the one time?
Oh, that is an impossible question for me. I think that I will say that, well, you know, the opening of the amphitheater last week, you know, I'm not really an emotional person, but it was pretty overwhelming to see the lights flown and the, you know, the sound up and everyone, you know, getting ready to do a show after what we'd kind of experienced in 2020. So I you know, it's you drop into show mode pretty quickly, but last week was pretty emotional for me just because it was such a representation about how, you know, we can overcome it and so, but yeah, when you but that said, so last week was very special. I also, when you said No Doubt, I thought you were going to talk about the band No Doubt, because I remember early in my career here, looking, so we're fortunate to have a very rare experience to be able to look up and look at 23,000 people. And Gwen Stefani said jump, and like to watch 23,000 people, it was no doubt at the height of their popularity, and watch 23,000 people jump at one time is pretty special. So
cool.
so yeah, but there's way too many memories to tell you a favorite.
Yeah.
It's just it's all great. But I'm so grateful that you guys would give me this opportunity. It's really fun to talk about it among fans, and I'm just very grateful. And really I can't wait to show you all the Wall of Fame at the amphitheater. The New American Family Insurance Amphitheater Wall of Fame is amazing because you can actually see all these bands that you probably remember, or in Brian's case, don't remember. See it.
That's awesome. I've got one final question.
Yeah.
So this might be the hardest question we're going to ask. So Summerfest goes back to 1968, quite a history there. If we're playing Summerfest Trivial Pursuit, what question would you put on there to stump the best Summerfest expert? What's something they wouldn't know? What would be a good question to put on Summerfest Trivial Pursuit?
That's a really good question. Who was the first band that played at the amphitheater?
That's a great one.
That's a
which
really
amphitheater?
good question.
The 1987 opening of the Marcus Amphitheater.
Can I take a stab at it?
Yeah.
Was it, and I might be wrong, was it the Beach Boys?
No. It
Who
was
was
the
it?
Washington Squares that opened for the Beach Boys. A technicality for you.
Ooh, I should get some
know,
credit.
right?
That was pretty good, though. You
Beach
gotta
Boys, they did headline, but yeah. So I know, right? And that there was like A+ for effort, but that's like that's a gotcha one for sure. No, I mean, there's so many things about what's kind of gone on here over time, but in '68, the foresight of really so many leaders throughout Summerfest history to keep this event what it is it's remarkable. So it's very special.
That's awesome. You know what? This has been a lot of fun.
Yeah, it has.
Sarah, thank you for being a great guest. We wish you a lot of success this coming Summerfest in a few weeks away. It's going to be a lot of fun. Everyone go. Thank you so much. Cheers.
Yeah.
This has been
Cheers.
over.
You're wonderful,
care.
Sarah. Thanks for everything you do.
Absolutely. Thanks again.